welcome or welcome back to Life on the French. Today we are back in the kitchen trying to see if YouTube recipes work in real life. So today we're going to be making an Italian wedding soup by Adam Ragusea, and if you want to follow his directions you can see the link down below in the description. And basically we're going to see how much does it cost to make, how much time is it worth it, does it taste good, etc. And can a beginner, a baby chef, can they pull it off or not? And this is what we're starting with. So today we're going to be making the stock for the soup. So we have some chicken thighs with the bone in, the skin on. We have celery, we have carrots, and we have an onion. And we're making some chicken stock. And I make a lot of homemade soup, but I've never just made like a stock and then like strained it, because like most of the time when you make chicken and dumplings you like leave all this in and then eat it. So I'm kind of curious to see like if I think this is worth it or if I just feel like it's wasteful, because we're not actually going to eat these carrots. That seems wasteful. We have to go to the store tomorrow and get more carrots for the soup. I don't know like who thought I was a butcher, but the last like 3 recipes we have done, I have had to debone something, and I'm over it. There has to be a better way. Like when we make chicken soup. When we make chicken soup, I just put the whole thigh in, and then I can take the bone out at the end, because all the meat is now like tender and off the bone, and you just take the bone out.
No, we usually just do boneless.
I have made it in the past.
Right.
With the bone in, that I have done that method.
Right.
This deboning is so gross. If you're squeamish.
Are we filming it this time? We
you.
could just skip past it if you want.
I'll have to pull the skin off. It's different. So I need a knife.
Which knife do you want?
I think he uses like a somewhat smallish knife. Yeah, we'll try that. Now, the benefit to this recipe, though, is because we're just going to be grinding the meat, it literally doesn't have to be, he says, like, the best. It just needs to be done, you know? Because
Right.
we're going to grind this meat. So if I tear the meat up, it literally doesn't matter. So you cut on either side of the bone. And then, and this is like, again, feels gross. I could never be a serial killer. That's what I've learned. That's the best I've ever done that. Look at that.
That was super fast. Yeah, good.
Okay, so this just goes into the soup pot, and then we rip the skin off. Like, doesn't it just sound like something a serial killer would say? Rip the skin off. I put it in a soup.
Sure, thinking a lot about serial killing.
This also? Probably?
Probably, yeah, it's like fat.
What I love about making soup is that it tends to be forgiving. But I'm fearful of these YouTube soup recipes because the miso soup we made, less than forgiving, I would say. Okay, I think his cut job was cleaner. We're going to see if that becomes a problem tomorrow when we go to grind the meat together. But for now, okay, we're done with the meat. The soup meat is in here. That's going in the fridge. Now the vegetables. Okay, so now we're going to be adding our vegetables. And so he used a red onion. I didn't realize that when I bought this onion. We're using this onion. So I'm going to use the larger half for the stock.
Okay.
So I think that's where we're going to want like the flavor, and if I feel like we need more onion, I have to go to the store anyway. His recipe was not super helpful when it came to grocery shopping, I have to say. Because he was like, half a pound of carrots. I was like, okay, so I bought a little over a half a pound actually of carrots. But then I watched his video and he throws 2 carrots just into the stock and then he uses carrots in his soup. So where's the other part of the carrots? Lies. I think maybe I'll just use Big Boy.
Okay.
Cut it in half. Because this was a half pound. This carrot is thick. Girthy.
Is that the thumbnail? Gonna get a lot of clicks.
Here we go.
All right.
So he just tosses the whole carrot in, so that's what I'm gonna do. It's in. And then we're just tossing in some celery. And now, before I'm so used to like this being like gross, but it's just vegetables. Before we add the water, we're going to make this a dark broth. I don't know if that's the term, but a white broth is one where you don't brown the vegetables and the chicken and you just add water. That's the normally what I do for a chicken soup, but for this we're going to make it a dark broth. So what he did is he went into the oven and had this under the broiler, but he said you can just do this on the stove, and we're really just trying to brown the meat and the vegetables a bit, and then we'll add the water.
It's not really gonna brown if you keep nudging it.
Well, you can't nudge it in the oven, so I'm just gonna let it alone. So it's brown, I think. The skin looks white, but then like it smells like it's burning, so we're just gonna say it's brown. I've turned off the heat. And now we're gonna add water. And he says to use a filtered tap water because tap water makes your soup taste like dish soap. I have never noticed that.
Dishwater.
Dishwater.
Yeah, but who drinks dishwater?
I don't know. But also, it has to have crazy amounts of filters. This is our filter, and it pretty much stays at this level. We only fill it up like
Once every 2 days.
but it's never to the top.
No.
It's always like almost empty, and just we add enough water so that we can drink. So I'm not going to be using our filtered water for this because that would not be something I do in the future off camera. So I'm going to be testing this recipe with our tap water. Add more water since we're doing it on the stove. Some of this is going to evaporate.
That's probably enough.
Just a smidge more. A smidge. There. Because this is all of our broth. Okay, so now I'm going to put the lid on. And we're going to simmer this for... So in the oven, he says that you could put it on 200 degrees overnight. I would never do that. I'm so afraid of fire. And also it's so fucking hot in this apartment. But, so what we're going to do is we're going to simmer it. And we're going to leave it on for, he says you can do 400 degrees for a couple hours. So I'm thinking if we have it on the stove, we could have it on for like 4 hours. So we're going to be simmering for 4 hours, and I might be in pajamas when you see me next. It's now 11:30 at night, and what Stan just made me realize is that we have to eventually get this in the fridge, which means it has to cool down. So I was going to let it go for another hour, because I was going to go to bed at like 12:30, but I don't want to be up till like 1:30 waiting for this to be fridge ready. So I'm just going to turn it off now, but let's check to see how it's looking. It smells good. Some of the water definitely evaporated, so I'm glad I put in extra. We're gonna let this cool. I'm gonna put it in the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow we will make the meatballs, reheat this, put the meatballs in, and have Italian wedding soup. See you then. Okay, so it is the next day. This is what our soup looks like. I strained it out yesterday before putting it in the fridge. I definitely could have let it sit in there, but then you're going to be taking hot soup, straining hot soup. That seems more dangerous than doing it when it's cold. So that's what I did. And now it's time to make the meatballs. We're going to start by warming the soup up. So we're taking our meat that we separated and we're going over to our food processor.
Didn't he want to mince it first? Do you mince it first? And...
No. He's saying as an alternative, you can hack at it with a knife.
Oh, okay.
Or you can put it in the food processor.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I'm doing. Okay. And now I'm going to pulse it. Ready?
Yep.
Looking pretty good. Not a paste, but definitely ground. Right?
Are there any big chunks hanging out there?
Not that I can see. All looks pretty chunky to me. No? I'm saying this is good.
Cool.
That was so fast. I really anticipated that taking a little bit longer than it did. Okay. Okay, so the egg goes in. So this is 1 egg yolk because we halved his recipe. And then we're using Parmesan. This is probably the most expensive part of this entire meal. So the recipe is once again unclear on the amount that we need. But he uses what seems like a lot. So we're going to use a lot. What gets me about this recipe is that he says it's supposed to be like cheap, inexpensive meal. And then he's like, buy a hunk of Parmesan. Which is like just as expensive as buying the meat.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely not the most expensive thing we've ever made, but I would not call this cheap.
Mm-mm. How's it look? I feel like that's a good hunk.
He uses like a quarter of like all volume is cheese in his video.
Alright, well, we can keep going if you want. You can put that stuff in. You can give you more room.
If you're like, where did this counter space come from? We're donating or going to try and sell it at Marketplace. Our tank that used to be Rocky's enclosure. We have Hypnos down here and Bruno over there, but we still have one empty tank. And this is just so nice. Like it doubled the size of our counter space if you look over there.
That's now our sink, and this is our counter space.
Yeah.
Mid video.
Yeah, mid-video this happened. Don't make the plastic part of the cheese. That's a pro tip.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. With what we already have.
Okay. I feel bad adding any more cheese. He also doesn't give a measurement for breadcrumbs. He says a quarter by volume in breadcrumbs.
Okay.
He used panko, we're just using original breadcrumbs. I'm hoping that doesn't matter. Yeah? More?
A little more? Yeah, that's good.
We can always add, too.
Yes, true.
He uses garlic powder, thyme, oregano, and sage. We only have garlic powder and thyme as individuals, but we were looking through our seasoning, and this Italian seasoning has thyme, sage, oregano, and then the added ingredients of rosemary and basil. So I think what I'm going to do is instead of using thyme by itself, I'm going to use this because it has the 3 other ones. And then garlic powder, and hope that the rosemary and basil is a bonus, not a negative thing.
If you want, you can take that top off. Sorry.
Again, there's no measurements for any of this, so I'm just doing it what my heart tells me is right.
It's pretty light seasoning.
More? Let me do the garlic.
That's a lot.
Okay.
That is a lot.
Okay. I'll go back to this. Look at this. We're so fancy now. It's the first time we're grinding pepper on this channel.
Mid-video.
Mid-video. We found these in a closet. It was a gift. I don't know why it was in the closet.
Thank you, gift giver.
And then we are going to snip in some parsley. He says if you have it. I don't know what that means. Do people just keep these things around? Just have them willy-nilly?
Maybe they have like a parsley bush. I could see that.
Pro Home's cook sometimes in his videos goes out to his like garden. He's like, whatever's fresh, and then just like picks things off the plant. Which is nice and all, but that's my yard right there. That windowsill.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't
And
have
the
any
parking
plants.
lot? Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, so I'm just gonna snip, snip, snip. That's what he does. Snippity snip. I don't know what that means. Snipping it in. Snip, 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 snip. These are big chunks.
You're probably good now. There's a whole dang stem in here.
Now we see how it looks when we mix it together. Okay, now we need to add olive oil.
Okay.
Because it's just rather dry. So the olive oil is because chicken tends to be not as fatty as like a beef meatball.
Parsley doesn't really seem like it's integrating at all.
Well, it'll make it look pretty. Right?
Yeah, and if it falls out, it'll just float around the soup.
Right. Maybe just a tad more olive oil, I think. Yeah, just a touch. That's good.
This all mixed up, I will sacrifice a little bit of it to the microwave so that I can do a quick taste for seasoning.
His looks
Actually, not
wetter.
that bad, and the salt is
Okay,
And
so
redder.
well, I think maybe for all of the as large as his pile of breadcrumbs looked,
Right.
ours seems more breaded
Yes.
somehow.
Yes.
And we definitely used less cheese. I don't really understand how this happened. But we didn't add salt, so let's add the salt.
How much does he like?
2 big pinches, he said. So 1 big pinch. That's good. That's good. Mix that in. Okay, and then we can microwave to see if it's good.
Do we want to? Nah.
I don't know how to fix this. You know what I mean? It's either going to be... I would think it's going to be too seasoned
Right.
rather than under seasoned. So I'm just going to leave it... We're just going to hope and pray. Hope
Yep.
and pray for us. Thanks. Okay, we're shaping them into meatballs now. He says you can either do like bite size or big ones. I'm going with whatever you consider the size.
Decent size.
Leaf.
Maybe the parsley leaves will just survival of the fittest their way out.
Put them in the center.
Like a nice little
A little sandwich.
parsley surprise
Yeah.
in the middle of your meatball. Very nice.
The parsley looks so fucking dumb.
I
Okay,
like the one that's just like
This-
has hanging out.
so we're gonna add our meatballs into our pan. Now this is to brown them. This is an optional step, he says. So while that's going, we're going to chop our vegetables and add the wine into our stock from yesterday. We're using a slap chop for the first time. How do I do this?
You put it under, and you put that on top,
Like that?
and then you start smacking it. Your onion got stuck. Maybe it was a little too big. Oops. I fixed it.
Okay.
Isn't it supposed to spin when you slap it? Here we go. There, that's a nice one. Maybe this is like a smaller slap chop.
Okay. Let's add these.
Okay. That's a big... Someone's gonna eat this?
Let's add this.
good soup though.
There's onion. Carrot time. Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Okay, we're just going to use... Okay, so he adds in a half bottle of white wine. So we're halving the recipe. So this is a quarter bottle of white wine. We're using Chardonnay. Don't know if that's right at all. He doesn't specify, so...
I looked it up that dry white wines, like what wine should you use, and you should use a drier one, and I guess that Chardonnay is a dry wine. I don't know, but...
Be mean to us in the comments if it's wrong. Don't be mean, but tell us nicely, please. So we're adding about half a bag of baby carrots, slap chopped. And the reason, we don't usually even cut our carrots, like if we have baby carrots in soup. The reason we cut them today is because he made the stock and then took those carrots out and used new carrots today. If you want your carrots to soften, they have to be small in the amount of time that this is taking.
Right.
But if you had just like cut the carrots yesterday and left them in the stock, this would not be necessary.
I have my doubts about
Bay leaves.
but you definitely do actually taste.
Put bay leaves in. Bay leaves. Hopper open, Poppy.
And you got a boil going if you wanted to put the meatballs in now.
Oh, excellent. Come here, little meatball. Cook.
You can already see some of the parsley popping out. Well, so much for a network that holds together the meatballs.
I really feel like if we had minced it,
Yeah, you'd be
it would
fine.
have worked.
Right.
It's just that when he said snip, and mine were a little bit bigger than his looked, but not by tons.
Right.
So what are we thinking so far?
It's probably the loosest recipe we've ever followed.
I would agree with that 100%. As a beginner, this was very difficult to follow. Like we had to go to the store an extra time because we needed more carrots than the recipe described. And I would like a little bit more specific guidance on the type of wine in the description. And then give me some amounts. Like, I realize it's a little bit to taste, but I don't have any idea of what is the right amount of seasoning. So if you give me like a quarter teaspoon, and maybe that's conservative,
Right.
and then I do the microwave trick or whatever and try it, great. You know, give me something. Work with me here.
Now we're only doing the things that can handle long cooking. The greens will wait. And the meatballs you can just drop in too. Let them poke.
It's browned.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. Also. Big hunky boy.
It's gonna be a full pot.
Look at that. That one looks good.
That one will turn out real nice.
Too much. And now you just simmer the.
Half of a 500-gram package, 250
so
grams.
100. So half. We did half of 500. So we
Right.
do half of 250.
Yes.
Which is 125.
Yes. And how much of the container is that?
This is 751 grams.
So about 1/8 of that container.
I'm gonna pour. You tell me when. Ready?
All right, let's check. You can do more. I like orzo. Little more. A little more, a little more. Good.
Okay, so I've been going for 8.5 minutes to cook the orzo and the meat. The last ingredient we have changed from what he recommended. So he recommended spinach.
No?
No, sorry. He recommended kale, as a leafy green, specifically curly kale. But Stan doesn't like kale, and I've never had kale, and I don't like most things. So we decided to go for a different leafy green, because in his description he just said leafy green. So we went with spinach. Now here's the thing. I have no idea if this is going to ruin the soup or not, but you add it at the end, so the broth won't be bothered by the spinach addition. So it'll just be, if we don't like how the spinach tastes, we'll just eat around the spinach. The other thing is that the spinach doesn't have like curly tips, so it won't pick up the broth the way that the curly kale would. We weren't sure if spinach was even in soups, but I did some research and it looks like spinach is included in a lot of soup recipes. So we're just gonna try it in this soup and see how it goes. Okay, so what do you think is the best way to do this? We'll cut this off.
Yeah, cut that off.
Okay.
We'll put that on the side over here. And then just kind of mince it vertically.
This way?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to cut too small pieces because they wilt.
Right.
So like here?
Yep. And then one more. Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Bam.
Nice little pile of spinach.
We're so healthy. So we just did a taste test of the broth, and you can really taste the wine, it seems like so far. It's really interesting. Definitely distinct from a standard chicken broth, but it is much sweeter than I care for things to be, so we are going to add some more salt. This much more.
Okay.
Right?
I think you could probably do more.
We can always salt to taste at our bowls, though.
True. Orzo's done.
Orzo is done. So now we can turn this down to a simmer. And we're going to let this simmer for another 20 minutes.
Cool.
So we've been letting this simmer for 10 minutes so far, and now we're going to add in our spinach so that it is still fresh, and then we can eat it 10 minutes after this. So, here we go.
Some garlic. My other favorite Italian soup trick is to stir in fresh garlic right before you eat.
Garlic.
Garlic.
That good?
Yeah.
I know he used fresh. Okay? We already had this. We've had this since miso. So, that's where it is.
We're making the most of it.
It's been 10 minutes. It's crazy how much it goes down, the spinach.
The spinach, yeah.
Wild.
I already got the bay leaves out for you. They're
Oh,
here. All two of them. They were deceptive, but I got to the bottom of it.
Great.
Elusive, not deceptive.
Elusive. They didn't lie to you? They said, we're not a bay leaf, we're spinach. I'm so excited. This took a long time to make. Why don't you tell the people how long it took to make, your thoughts?
Well, we did it, yesterday we started? So an hour, and then like 2 hours today. So yeah, it was a lot of work.
Oh, it's got the gelatin thing he was talking about.
There, yep, there it is.
Hey. That's exciting. The broth is really good. It's very light. Like he said this is like a winter thing. I see this almost as a summer kind of. It's got a freshness to it.
Yeah, this isn't a winter soup. This is a summer soup.
It's like coming from, I think, the wine.
Yeah.
But it's very good.
And the parsley. There's
And
a
the
freshness
parsley.
to it.
Yeah. Just add a bit of spinach. I think it works. It's not super flavorful, the spinach. So this, if you're trying to eat spinach and you don't really like it, this might be a good way. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Some of the parsley clearly stayed in. A lot did not. Okay, so final thoughts. Thought the flavor was really good. Stan liked it more than I did. But I think that's to be expected because I don't usually eat a lot of meat in soup. And obviously the main source of, food in this soup is the meatball. That's kind of like a centerpiece. But I really liked how the carrots tasted. I loved the taste of the broth. The spinach was really good in the soup. The orzo was good. And the onion. Everything came together in a pretty unique way. It definitely tasted different from our normal chicken noodle soup, which is what I was looking for. It's a lighter type of flavor. Where we think that the recipe may not be worth it is partially the cost. You had to buy a whole thing of Parmesan for the meatball, and then I didn't taste Parmesan in the meatball. It just more so acted as a binder. So, I don't know, perhaps the meatball could be made more breadcrumbs and meat, less Parmesan, or maybe egg, something. I think the meatball could be tweaked. But I really did like how the seasoning in the meatball paired with the seasoning in the broth. It was fairly complex, but in a nice way, and it wasn't overpowering. Sometimes you follow these recipes and the flavor is just too much. I didn't feel that way about the soup, but I was still you still felt the flavor. And then time-wise, it's definitely a bit of a process. It's kind of a weekend thing. It takes 2 days to make, and a good chunk of that time you are actually doing something. So if you were having company over, I think it would be worth it to do, because it serves a lot of food, it serves a good amount of protein, it's got your vegetables, it's everything is in one place, and that's really nice. But will Stan and I make it for just the two of us? I'm not sure. I felt like his video, it's interesting that it turned out so well with it being such loose guidelines.
Right. I couldn't have told the difference between our first time and if we did it for guests. I think there's very little I would want to change about that flavor if I were to host somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
For what we just ate.
Yeah, I wish we would have measured so I could replicate.
We got a video.
But we have a video. I really like his channel. He does a lot of videos on food science and where things come from and food myths, and they're really informative and I love them. And I really liked this recipe too. I didn't find his tutorial that easy to follow compared to Pro Home Cooks or even Binging with Babish. They just usually have a little bit more instruction, and this was definitely a home cook. Call your grandma. Okay, grandma, what do I need to go in this? I just eyeball in how much flour, and then you can just whip it up and then see what the stringiness is like. That was what it was like following the recipe. And some people are really good at that, and I'm typically not. So it's a miracle this turned out so well the first time. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of our content, click subscribe, ding the bell button to know when we post. Most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!
Bye!